Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. What a beautiful combination of scriptures we heard today, read. I made mention about the St. Paul's letter, his epistle reading this morning, and about building a foundation underneath ourselves. Years ago, I had a visual aid. I brought in one of these punching bags that was weighted in the bottom. Maybe I should do that again so you see what I'm getting at. And it had some weight at the bottom, and you could punch the thing, and it would fall down and just come right back up. And I said, you know, on a windy day, it could be very, very windy. You can put one of those out in the parking lot, and it's not going to go anywhere because it's weighted down. It's got a heavy foundation. But if you took a balloon that has no weight in its foundation, and you put it outside, even on a calm day, and certainly on a windy one, you'd have no idea what's going to happen to it. And so putting a foundation underneath ourselves, which we're trying to do in Sunday school, and we're trying to do in Bible study, and sermons and other things, putting a good foundation of ourselves is important because we cannot avoid those days and times in life where it's going to be windy and stormy outside. And so do you want to have a nice weight underneath you, a weight of spirituality, a weight of Christ? Do you want to have that anchor you down? Or do you want to be like the balloon in the air, the wind comes along and nothing happens? If we put a balloon in here, it would probably sit on the ground all day and not go anywhere. But there's no crisis in here. There's no wind in here. There's no storm in here. So anyone can do great on an average day. But when you go out into a stormy time, if you're not weighted down with some spirituality, you're going to be like that balloon. You're going to go who knows where. The gospel reading has one solid piece of advice among many. There are actually many, but there's one solid piece, which is that even Christ, the Son of God, took time out to go and be alone with God and to pray. The gospel lesson finds that Christ went up on the mountains by himself to pray, and this was immediately after the miracle that we saw last Sunday, the parable of the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, that miracle. Immediately after that, Jesus went up by himself to pray. He didn't gloat over that, like, look at what I did. He went right away to get recharged. Right away to get recharged. So whether we're having a good time or a bad time, we should be going to God to recharge. And lots of people run to God only when it's bad. But what about when you have a big victory? You should be running to God in thanksgiving to say, I need to spend some time alone with you to thank you for what you did. Not just some time alone to beg you to help me, but to spend time in good time and bad time. You can't cultivate a relationship with somebody if you don't talk to them. Communication is central to any relationship of any kind that you have. So you can't have a relationship with God if you never open your mouth and talk to him. If we never do that, we don't have a relationship. And the relationship with someone who's important, like your spouse or your children or your parents, is not supposed to be something you're doing once a week for half an hour. I joked with a group of young adults. I said, you know, can you imagine if you went and proposed to someone and said, would you marry me? I'll give you a good half hour a week, you know, unless I'm busy. No one would accept a proposal like that. I said, guys, can you imagine if you went up to a girl and said, you know, I want to marry you, but I'll give you a half hour a week. What do you think? She'd probably be like, bye and bye. All right, no one's going to agree to something like that. Because in order to have a relationship, you've got to talk to somebody. And so in order to have a relationship with Christ, we've got to be talking to him on a daily basis. And our growth toward Christ cannot be measured on goodness. Because lots of people are like, you know, I'm a good person. I never really do anything bad. So what do I need to go to God for? I mean, what if I'm a good person all week? I don't have to go to church, do I? But see, like, the ultimate beneficiary of your goodness is you. Like, I'm a good driver. But the ultimate benefit to my good driving is me. I don't have tickets or accidents. Right? The idea is not to be a good driver or a good person. It's to be a godly person. If I'm a godly driver, then I'm looking at the other people on the road and I'm caring about them. Which I confess I don't. I'm better when there's no one on the road. I like it better that way. I'm still a good driver. But the godly driver can say, even in rush hour traffic, thank you, God, that I'm here, and please, God, help these other people that are on the road to get home safely like me, instead of thinking bad thoughts about why there's so many of them. All right? So it's not to be a good person, it's to be a godly person. And the next point in the gospel is that this is the gospel where Peter walks on the water, and then we know the story that Peter takes his eye off of the Lord, and sees the waves and starts to sink. And as we do many times, we sort of look critically at Peter. Like, look at that guy. Why is he so doubting? Well, you know, Peter is like one of the most refreshing and real people in the Bible. In fact, you gotta like give props to that guy, because of all the disciples, he actually got out of the boat and tried walking on the water. So before we get on Peter and say like, you had no faith, look at your faith. Like, it took faith to get out of the boat and take the first step on the water. Like, I actually give encouragement and props and congratulations to Peter, because he got out of the boat. All the rest of them were just sitting there. Right? So it takes some faith and some courage to actually get out of the boat and take a step on the water, and Peter did that. But the problem is, in our journey to faith, and Peter got out of the boat well-intentioned. That's a great thing he did. He saw Christ, he said, Lord, is it you? Is it you? The other disciples were like, oh, it's a ghost. We're afraid, we don't understand. And Peter, he knew who Christ was. He says, it's you, Lord. I want to come to you. And Jesus said, come on out. And so he took that step of faith, and that's a great thing that he did. But the problem is, like life, we all did a great thing. We came to church today. Everyone did a great thing. It's a good thing you got up and you came here today. Whether you came by force or by choice, however you came, you came. You made a great choice today. I'm sure some people came by force today. Probably some kids did. Maybe they're not here yet anymore. But you all came. That's a good thing. And then we're going to go out the door, and something's going to happen when you go out the door. You're going to see the waves of your life around you. Everyone's got to go back to their stressful job, or the stressful traffic, or their stressful kid, or their stressful financial situation, or whatever it is that brings you stress. So we see the beautiful light of God in the church, and we're going to go out full of God's light, instantly surrounded by the waves of life. And then what are we going to do? Are we going to keep our eye on Christ, or are we going to keep our eye on the waves? When we keep our eye on Christ, we can walk through the waves. When we take our eye off Christ and we look at the waves, we're going to begin to sink, because we're going to forget what Christ did and does for us. Keep our eyes on Christ, and good things happen, generally. Faith mixed with doubt, that is normal. That is normal for life. Faith is mixed with doubt. Why is that? Because God is fighting for us and the devil is fighting against us. In our lives, it's really a battle for focus. On God's voice and God's direction, or do we focus on the waves? What has our attention? What are we listening to? Christ's voice, why did you doubt, is not a voice of consternation for Peter. Lots of people think Jesus chastised Peter. It actually was a voice of encouragement. Why did you doubt? I got your back. Trust me. I've got you. You might not understand that. You might not believe it, but I do. So Jesus' voice, why did you doubt, is actually a voice of encouragement. Don't doubt. I've got your back. Many times we don't trust. Many times I don't trust. I get stressed or frustrated, and then I realize I have two choices: to look at Christ or to look at the waves. And what makes the difference of where I look? What makes the difference of where I look? It's actually really simple. It's the alone with God part that I talked about a minute ago. When I'm spending time with Him, I look at Him more. And when I don't spend time with Him, I look at the waves more. Spend time with Him, and you won't see the waves as big as they are. There are two constants in life, God and the waves. Just because we go with God doesn't mean there are no waves. There might be some big waves in some lives here. I know there are. I'm looking out and I know some people have big waves in their lives. Just because we go with God doesn't mean we don't have big waves. But going with God is what allows us to pass through the waves on the way to His safe haven of everlasting life. Thank you for being here and taking a step out of the boat of your life and trusting and sitting with God for a little bit. I hope we have every Sunday filled like this. I hope the communion line gets longer and longer. That's a good problem to have. So keep coming, keep bringing your kids, and let's keep working together so that we can get ourselves through the waves of life. Our greeters today are Jeannie Carter, I saw earlier, there's Jeannie, and Skip Higdon, who's filling in for Helen Cawthorn, Skip, and Calliope Chigueras, who's over there, who is our ambassador today. If you're new to our community, would like to get connected with our community, please please see one of these ladies and they will get you connected with our community. Have a wonderful and blessed week.